Good evening and welcome to this Ask Me Anything About Property Investing with myself, Hussain. I'm here every Monday evening around 8:30 p.m. for about half an hour to really answer your questions around investing in property. I share my knowledge and experience with you. I've been investing in property for about 15 years now, and really this is an opportunity for you to ask any questions around investing in property and be able to help you. So whichever platform you're watching on, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, whatever it is, I'll pop a question on the platform and we'll do our very best to answer that for you this evening. So it's been a very interesting week. The Chancellor's had the budget, and it's certainly made an impact in the property market, and it will affect what's happening in the property market, certainly for the next few months at least anyway. So we're in interesting times, markets changing, evolving as it has been over really the last year or so. Lots of things have been going on. The market's really buoyant, really strong right now. So let's start off with the questions for this evening. Let's get our first question up this evening. Our first question's from Asif on YouTube. Hi Saj, small property developments. How would I obtain NHBC warranty? I have 2 houses on a plot also. Which warranty gives you the best chance of selling at the end? User buying through a mortgage. So if you've got you've either got the warranty or you've got the insurance scheme, and when you set up your building regs, you can combine it with that. I'm just trying to remember the name of the one that we are using. I think it's Stroma that we're using, that does the warranty for us and also takes care of the building regs. And they'll sign off the building regs. They'll give you the certificate for the new build at the end. So it all gets done at the same time. Fairly straightforward. Your architect should be able to give you some pointers on that. Whoever's done the design work for you, in terms of getting that set up. Your building contractor, whoever's going to build them, should be familiar with that as well. So you shouldn't really have any problems with that. If you do, just ping me a message. I can connect you with a few people that can help you with that for sure. I have a next question this evening. Is from Trillion Beats on YouTube. Hi Saj, I've put in an offer on a house at the asking price of 160,000. Another person's matched it. It's now down to the best and final offer on buying for residential. How much more shall I offer to secure? Trillion, that's not really enough information for me to be able to give you an answer in terms of how much more. It really depends what it means to you. If it's really valuable to you, it's really important that you get it. And remember, when you're buying a home, it's not quite the same as an investment property. If I think about the times I've purchased a property that we were going to live in, we've not really thought about it in the same way as an investment. Yes, you might make some money over it over the time, but really, personally, I wouldn't treat the home in the same way I treat an investment property. There might be certain things about that property. It means it works really well for you. For example, could be school, location, parking, whatever it is. And that way, it's thinking about what is it that's important to you, what works for you, and what is it you're prepared to pay for that property. If somebody else has matched it, they're going to be probably put into the same position where they need to come up with their best and final offer as well. So, they may offer another 1,000, 2,000 more. They might not be prepared to offer anything else more. They might be able to offer £10,000 more. You don't really know. So you just got to look at it. What's the best you're prepared to pay? You could leave it till the last minute. And speak to the agent and see if the agent gives you any indication where the other interests are. They may tell you, they may not. Generally, they're not supposed to tell you, but during a conversation, you can get an inclination which way it might be going, whether the other part is interested, any other offers are in as well, and they take it from there. And remember, a property is never sold until it's actually sold, because a sold subject to contract just means that somebody's agreed to buy it. It's going through the legal, the conveyancing, the finance, whatever, which will take many, many weeks, several months even at the moment, the way things are going. And as a possibility could fall out of bed as well, come back to market. The sellers change their mind, the buyers change their mind, whatever it might be. So it doesn't mean just because you've lost it now, that's it, it's gone. It probably has, but it doesn't mean it's definitely gone. There's a possibility it might come back as well. So in short, it depends how important it is for you. It's looking at what's it worth to you, what is it you're prepared to pay to live in that property there. And of course, when they do a valuation on for your mortgage, when you make your mortgage application, the surveyor will come out and value it. And if they don't agree in terms of valuation, sometimes you can use that to go back and renegotiate. Other times it might be you don't have anything to negotiate on, because the seller might turn around and say, well, this is what you said you were prepared to pay. Now you've got to make a decision whether you continue with the purchase with only the amount of money you can get from the mortgage, and you've got to top the rest up with your own funds, or you retract your offer and walk away from it. So I hope that helps. Hope that gives you a few pointers there on that. So our next question is from Imran Ali on Facebook. How do you use an investor's money? Do you purchase properties or use it for refurbs, etc.? So I guess the question is, how do I use other people's money? Well, there's many different ways we work with other investors. Generally, they're either lending money for projects or they're coming in as a partner where we do a profit share. And if they're lending money for projects, we might be using some of those monies for a purchase, or it might be using those monies for a renovation. It just depends what type of project it is and what we're doing. So in short, in answer to your question, we do both of those things when we're borrowing money, and when we're working with a partner in terms of a joint venture, really they're funding both the purchase and the renovation side of the project as well, and we're doing a profit share. And if you want to learn more about investing with me, I've got a number of projects that we're looking at the moment. If you're interested in getting involved, we've got at least £50,000 to invest, and you're interested in investing with me, just have a look at my website. It's hussain.com. There'll be an option there about working with me, and if you fill in the form, we can have a chat about how we can do that. In fact, that's just flashed up just now. Perfect timing. Next question is Inoxi. I always make a mess of pronouncing your name, on my apologies. Hi Saj, do you need a license for a 4-bed HMO? If you don't, are you still required by law to be HMO compliant? I mean, like installing fire doors, room size, etc. When it's a 4-bed, doesn't need a license. So in short, if you're using a property as a HMO, which means more than 2 people that are not related to each other, i.e. 3 or more people, then it's a HMO. So you should make sure it's safe, it's compliant. When you're making a license application, what you're doing is submitting to the council that this is how I'm running this property, and they want you to meet certain requirements. And so that's why some people will meet those requirements, because they need to for the license. And often people think, well, because I don't need to apply for the license, that means I don't need to make it fire safe, which is predominantly what the license application focuses on. A lot of it's about making the house safe and ensure there's enough amenity space. So although there's nobody checking to see whether you've done that, my advice and suggestion would be to make sure it is safe. So you sleep properly at night, you made sure the house is safe, it meets all the minimum requirements, because things can change as well. So something, for example, that doesn't require a license now, it doesn't mean it doesn't require a license at some point in the future. So if you comply with the minimum standards, firstly, it's good practice, and secondly, it will mean be easier in the future. Now, with a lot of councils, they will have additional licensing, mandatory licensing, selective licensing. So there's many different types of licensing as well. You could have Article 4 in some places, which are additional planning requirements as well. So it's important that whichever council borough you fall under, where the property is in, that you understand what the requirements are for that particular council and how they work. And they might have different interpretations of what they want, and they might be asking for. You can always send them an email, both to planning and licensing, just to check if there's any specific requirements that you need to meet for running, say, a 4-bedroom HMO. So I'd encourage you to do that. I've got a couple of videos where I talk about this in a lot more detail on my YouTube channel. So make sure you check that out. In fact, there's over 200 videos on the YouTube channel now. And there's certainly a video there on licensing and the different aspects of licensing as well. So I hope that helps you with that. Our next question this evening, KHUB on YouTube. One, you get HMO planning. Once you get HMO planning, how long do you have to start works? Once you start works, how long do you have to finish the works? So this is really more of a planning question. It doesn't matter if it's a HMO, if it's something else. Once you've got planning approval, assuming you made a planning application and you've got a formal approval for planning, most planning lasts 3 years. So that means there'll be a condition within your planning. So once you've got a planning approval document, it often comes with a set of conditions. One of those conditions will be you need to start within 3 years. So what that means is the process needs to have started within 3 years. Once you've started it, then you've got many more years. I think it's 7, I'm not entirely sure. But once you've started it, you've initiated the process, and then it's less of an issue. You can draw it out and have it much longer. So if you didn't necessarily want to convert the property immediately, you wanted to convert it at a later stage, as long as you start the works within 3 years, for example, get the process started, get the building regs registered that you're starting works on the property, then you can stretch it out for much longer should you need to. Next question is from Jack on YouTube. Jack Smith, hi Saj, how to deal with tenants subletting after taking on a single rent? This is not a great place to be in. If you've let a property to somebody and they're subletting, you've opening up a can of worms and potentially lots of problems. So for example, deposits being taken, not being registered, even though you haven't received them, they're still tenants in your property. Right to rent checks, whether they've got a legal right to even be in this country to be able to let, which is what we should be checking for any tenants that are moving into the property as well. You haven't got any ID checks. And of course, you haven't necessarily even got any of the paperwork. But once they're in that property and they've signed up, they've signed a tenancy agreement, it might be illegally done, i.e. you hadn't granted permission for that to happen, but they're in the property. Getting them out still requires you to go through the same legal process. You can't just turn up and say, hey, you've got no right to be here because actually I haven't granted you a tenancy, you need to leave. The problem is they have been granted a tenancy, they just haven't got it from you. So it's a major problem. They are to speak to the council, first of all, speak to a solicitor as well. If you're a member of any of the associations like the National Residential Landlord Association, maybe have a chat with them and their solicitors to get some guidance. I've never experienced that situation, but I can see it being potentially a huge problem for you. So you want to try and nip it in the bud and deal with it straight away. And of course, the person you've let to is try and find out what's going on there as well. What's in terms of how have they let this happen. And you hear about this sometimes, on the TV programs and stuff, that you'll see Paul Champlin, for example, on his TV show, where they've gone to evict people that are living in a property that was sublet to them and they didn't realize. But the person who would issue the tenancy to, often the mistake is made there, because the proper checks haven't been done on the person who's taking on the tenancy in terms of whether they're going to be the right person. So sometimes it's about sense checking these things as well. And this is what annoys me about some letting agents, that are not necessarily checking these things properly. Not all, but some. For instance, if you've got a single person who's moving into the property and it's a 5-bedroom house, how does that make sense? Why does a single person need a 5-bedroom house to rent? It's unlikely they're going to be living there on their own. They might be telling you that, but that doesn't make sense. So again, just things like this: how much they're earning, what kind of work they're doing in that area, how long they've had that job, checking the references properly from not their last landlord, but even the one before that, because sometimes the last landlord, or the current one rather, may not be telling the truth because they want to kind of just move them on. But the one before that, who are they no longer a tenant of, that landlord's probably going to be more open and honest in telling you their experience of that particular tenant. So making sure you just thoroughly check and vet who you're moving into the property in the first place is, I'd say, is key. And that will massively reduce your chance of having problems with the tenancy. So if it's something that's already happened, I'd try and nip it in the bud straight away. I'd get onto it straight away, get onto your tenant straight away who you've let to, find out what's going on there. Try and take over the tenancies, at least if you can, the collection of the rent, so you're in control, getting the IDs, the documents of everybody that's there as well. So and by informing the council, what you're doing is letting them know this is happening, so that you're not in breach of these things. You've made them aware what's happening there. But yeah, it's not a great situation to be in, I'm afraid. Our next questions on Instagram, which is Khalid has put up on the screen. Official I am Naz, I think that says, how to negotiate prices for below market value properties? What are the best strategies when negotiating prices? So I'm assuming what you're saying is, how do you negotiate a price to get it below the market value? So if a property comes up for sale, it's £100,000, you want to get it less than that. First of all, you have to think about why somebody's going to sell it to you for less than it's worth. If it's just come on the market's really buoyant like it is right now, there's 10 people queuing up to buy it. The agent is telling people and turning people away and saying, I can't take any more viewings. We've already got plenty of people to view this property. They've got offers coming in close to the asking price. Why are they going to sell it to you for less than it's worth? The reality is they aren't. It's not likely to happen. So this is the mistake many people make when they're looking for below market value property. What they do, they go looking for the property. Really what you should be looking for under below market value is the circumstances, not the property, the circumstances around the seller that's leading them towards selling a property below market value. So there's genuine and legitimate reasons why somebody will sell a property below market value. So often people think about auctions or places where you can buy property below market value. Sometimes I'd question whether that is the case, but the belief is that properties can be purchased cheap at the auction. So why do properties get sold through the auction when they can just sell them through the estate agent when they know they're probably going to achieve less? And the reason that is because there's certain circumstances, it means they need to move that property on quickly. And so speed is one of the main things. When something needs to happen quite quickly, people might compromise and say, I'll take a lower price if I can get this done straight away. So for instance, somebody could be in financial difficulty. It could be a business person that's got several properties. They need the money for the business. So they're prepared to sell a property quickly to get their cash to be able to do something else and be able to lock in another deal, for instance. Sometimes it could be like a chain break where somebody's prepared to accept a lower price for somebody else to come in and buy that property and fix the broken chain so that they can continue and move on to the next property, which is really important to them. It doesn't come up very often for them to be able to purchase. It's a rare property. They don't want to lose that particular deal. It could be that it's a divorce situation and the both parties want to go off and do their own thing and they want to do it straight away. They don't necessarily want to wait around. They just want to get something agreed quickly. These are circumstances that lead to somebody selling a property below its true worth. And it's finding the people with those circumstances rather than finding the property and wanting to get that below market value. That's the key distinction, I believe, that many people get wrong when they're looking for below market value property. So it's about the circumstances and why somebody would do that, what's the benefit for them in terms of offering you the property for a lower price. Often it's a case of what you're giving them is speed and certainty, and what you get in return is a lower price, i.e. below market value. So I hope that helps. I hope that gives you some pointers there. Thank you so much for that question on Instagram. So our next question is also on Instagram, which is Wedgila, I think. Hey, how do you make sure rooms stay in the same top condition? Tenant after the tenant for the high-end rooms, do you always have to use the deposit to pay for a refurb? Which item do you have to replace often? So it's very rare for us to make a deduction on a deposit, first of all, but some of it's about managing expectations and what needs to happen. So before a tenant moves in, you emphasize the property may be in really good condition, things are in a good order, you have very good inventories that you do. We do video inventories. We've done for a very, very long time. Before somebody moves into the property, that forms part of their tenancy agreement. You let people know it's been thoroughly cleaned before they move in. And the expectation then is when somebody comes to move out, that you're looking for the same thing. You're looking for the property to be left very clean, just as it was when they moved in. You're looking for nothing to be broken in the property, no damage that needs to be rectified or replaced. And obviously a little bit of wear and tear, but no damages. And then, if somebody's been there for quite some time, you might have a little bit of touching up and things you need to do on the decorating. That just comes with a little bit of wear and tear. But generally speaking, there shouldn't be very much that needs to do. So a lot of our high-end rooms, often that's all we're doing. We're just doing a little bit of touch-up decorating just to keep them fresh and keep in good order. Now, also we do regular inspections, which is key, because if somebody moves into a property and the next time you go to look at that room is in 2 years' time when they move out, well, you don't know what's been happening that time. If you've inspected the room, say after 3 months, you've got a sense for kind of what it's like, what the situation is, how they're living. If there's any concerns, problems, you can start dealing with it immediately rather than waiting until the end of the tenancy. So these are the things that help in terms of making sure you get the room back in a good order so that you can re-let it easily, particularly around cleaning and condition. Of course, if there are damages, you speak to them beforehand, before they move out the property, say these things are broken, they're not like they were, so they need to give them an opportunity to sort these things out, because once they've moved out and if there's still damages that haven't been sorted out, then yes, we would look to deduct that from their tenancy, but we'd keep very good inventories, video inventories on move in and move out as well, so we can compare the two, and if there's ever a dispute, we can send them to the deposit dispute arbitrator, who's it called? I think it's the arbitrator that deals with it. If there's a dispute, and let them have a look at it, and they can see if you've got good records, good evidence, it's likely you can justify that deduction even if it's challenged. So I hope that helps. Thank you so much on Instagram for those questions there. Keep them coming. Next question's on YouTube from Craig Gummery. Is it true you work with Samuel Leeds? Great question. So I know Samuel Leeds. Samuel came along to one of my networking events. I'm trying to remember when. I can't remember exactly when. Probably 7, 8 years ago, which is when I first met Samuel. And Samuel's gone on to run some, huge events and stuff, and a great following. And Samuel has lent some money for one of the projects that we've done, and that's the business I've done really with Samuel. We don't work together. I don't have any regular contact or interaction with Samuel. He does his own thing. And yeah, so that's my involvement with Samuel. Yes, I do know him. I met him when he came along to one of our events many years ago, and he lent money for one of the projects that we were doing as a loan. So I hope that answers your question there. Next question on Facebook from Nazmul Haq. How to negotiate pricing for below market value properties? What's the best strategy of negotiating pricing? I'm sure it's the same question we had earlier on. So I answered that earlier. So we'll jump on to the next question because it's pretty much exactly the same question that was asked earlier on. Next question is Rajinder Chauhan on YouTube. Do you recommend people pay for a mentor to help with property investing and strategies? So look, Rajinder, I think there's two parts to this. First part is knowledge, and the second part is the application of knowledge, i.e. applying that knowledge to get some results. Now, I have several mentors that I work with different parts of my business, on the sales side, on some of the tech side of the business, on marketing, property. I have different mentors and people that I go to for support and help in terms of to really help build my business and take it to the next level, because there's lots of things I want to do. I've got big dreams, big aspirations. I want to keep growing and lots more I want to do. And they help me, they hold me to account, they give me the support I need to keep me moving forward and keep growing. In the same way, I run my own mentoring program. I have a number of mentees that I help and support and help them progress. But the distinction between the two, and I think it's key, part of it is about information and some of it is about the support. Information, you can do courses, you can learn how to do something, but the support in the application of that knowledge is really what I believe a mentor would do. And in my mind, a mentor is somebody who's done the things that you want to do. Whereas a coach may not necessarily have achieved those things, and they're supporting you and helping you find your own answers. But really, a mentor's already done those things and say, look, this is how I believe you can avoid making mistakes and actually get there quicker. So when I talk to people potentially working with me as on my mentoring program and say, what am I ultimately going to get? And I say, well, look, you're not going to get a huge amount of knowledge because you're not joining for knowledge. What you're joining is to get support from me to ultimately help you get there faster and avoid mistakes along the way. That's the key part of what you're getting in terms of mentoring. I believe that's what I look for, and that's how my mentoring works as well. So yes, I am a fan of mentoring. I have mentors and I mentor people as well in property and property investing. But the knowledge part I see is different. That's information. That's like what I'm sharing with you now. I'm giving you my time and knowledge for free. So you can learn these things, you can get the information. Sometimes you want detailed information. You might get a course that helps you get through the intricacies of how something works. But it's a little bit like, say, you learn to drive a car for the very first time. The first time many of us learned to drive a car was when we sat in the driving seat and held that steering wheel and says, right, okay, what are all these things? Someone's going to show you what to do. But you could have read a book or watched a video how to drive a car. But it's never going to be the same until you actually sit there and do it. And that's the thing with mentoring, because when you actually apply the knowledge that you have, that's often when you need the support and the help. And that's why also I see many people give up very quickly in property and property investing, because let's face it, it is hard work. It's not easy, but the rewards are huge, what you can get in property. And so having the right guidance and support certainly helps get there faster and avoid the mistakes. So I hope that helps. That gives you my viewpoint on that. Our next question is on Instagram, again over here. Alumedi, apologies if I not pronounced that correctly. I'm terrible at pronouncing names. How do you assemble a team to carry out a refurb? Do you give it to a builder contractor who manages everything, or do you get individual tradesmen to carry out the various works and manage them directly? This is a great question, and a question I get asked quite a lot. How do you put together a team of people? My view is, if you're new to this and you're starting out, then it's better to hand the job to one experienced person who's going to take care of it for you, i.e. a builder, a building contractor, depending on what the job is. They're really taking care of the whole thing for you. Because if you're new, you don't know what you don't know. So when you're trying to manage teams, and this is a mistake I made when I first started renovating properties, 12, 13 years ago. I was getting various tradespeople in. I'd have the electrician in, the plumber in, the plasterer in, the carpenter, and I'd be trying to manage all these people to do the job. But actually, when I'm refurbing the kitchen, it's the first time I'm refurbing a kitchen, I'm not quite sure what needs to be done in what order. I'm relying on them to tell me, and they're not there to teach me. They're there to do their job. So it's trying to juggle and organize these things and understand who needs to be done in what order. When we have more experience of doing these things, yes, if you want to, you could do that. But even now, with all the experience I have and being involved in hundreds of transactions, I choose not to get involved in individual projects and manage the trades. Even though, yes, we could save some money, I'd rather get more projects done by not having my time tied up in one project, because there's people there who run the project. And yes, we're still responsible overseeing them, but we have a good, competent person on each project whose job is it to deliver that particular project. So that's my preference, and that's something I still do. In terms of where to find people, the best place is recommendation, asking around locally, seeing other people who are using tradespeople and contractors and what their experience of working with them is. Projects have already finished, going to have a look at those and getting some recommendations. I think that's the best place to start when it comes to these kind of things. And when you're doing renovations, if you're just starting out, I encourage you to keep them small. So maybe start with light refurbishments, which essentially may be meaning redecorating and changing the carpets and new floor coverings and stuff, versus having to kind of do a strip out and a big refurb as your first one, just to kind of cut your teeth and start get into it before you take on bigger projects. So I hope that helps. Thank you for asking that question on Instagram. And remember, whichever platform you're watching on, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, pop a question. We'll do our very best to answer this for you. We're here every Monday at 8:30 p.m. for about half an hour, really, to answer your questions. And of course, have a look at the YouTube channel as well, because we have the 3 videos. We have this one, and on Wednesday we have a video which is teaching a certain topic. So this Wednesday I've got a fairly comprehensive and detailed video on bridging loans and how to use them and how they work and the things to look out for, pitfalls of that. Then on Friday I normally have a vlog which really takes you around some of the properties and the projects I'm doing, the kind of things I'm up to, and sharing some of my knowledge and experience with you. So that's 3 videos a week that are going out on my YouTube channel, really to ultimately help you get further faster in your property investing journey. If there's certain topics you want me to cover, just ping me a message or pop it in the comment section. Let me know. As I said, we've got over 200 videos on there. There's over 500,000 views now on the channel with close to 15,000 subscribers. So I'm so grateful for you all subscribing, enjoying and watching the content. And if you haven't yet subscribed, come on, help me out. Hit that subscribe button on the channel. Head over to the channel. It's the Saj Hussain, and give me some feedback on that as well. Thank you. So let's get on to our next question, which is from Faisal on Facebook. What's the biggest risk factor in BRR? Involve planning permission and prior approval to add more space. Full refurb include major structure change to original layout. So I'm not sure I fully understand the question, Faisal, but I think what you're saying is if you're doing a project that involves planning permission and prior approval, what's the risk? Where are the risks on that? Well, the biggest risk in a big project like that, when I say big, it means there's major changes happening to it, is being able to get the relevant approval. So the certainty of being able to get your planning, or the certainty your prior approval is going to go through without being challenged and not have any issues there, those are the key things I think are there for you. The other part to think about it is in a BRR, what you're doing, you're buying, you're refurbishing, and you're refinancing. So you're refinancing basing on end value. So you need to get confident on what the end value of that property is going to be before you start, because really that's what you're pegging this on. You're pegging this whole project on the fact that you're going to be able to get a certain valuation at the end. And your refurb is going to cost you this much, and you're paying this much for the property. And that profit that you're making in it is going to stay in there as equity. And when you refinance the property, you can get your investment back out, what you've paid for the property, the renovation you've done, hopefully all of the money, if not most of it at least, and then be able to move that onto another project. So now you've got a tenant in there who's paying you a rent, it's paying the mortgage, it's giving you a little bit of profit, and you've got nicely renovated property. So that's what you're trying to achieve. And the risks really being able to do what you want to do with it, which is the planning, approvals, etc. Being able to do it at the right price, i.e. being able to get everything done without sort of getting into problems in terms of costs, doing it within the time frame you wanted to, so it doesn't take much longer than what you're expecting it to do, and being able to get the end value that you were hoping for in that refinance, because that's the thing you need to do to be able to get the whole thing to work. So hope that helps. Hope that gives you some pointers there. Our next question is from Mohammed Jamil on Facebook. What property courses are you doing for first-time buyers? So Mohammed, great question. I'm not actually running any courses right now, but the plan is to put together some courses. And there's a few courses we're just working on right now, which will be getting started in property, essentially the overview, or the different strategies and techniques you can be using, which one's the right one for you. We'll have courses on HMOs, on lease options, on rent-to-rent, service accommodation, development, flipping, finding money from other people, sourcing property. They're the few that come to mind. They will be doing, but they'll come gradually as opposed to in one go. If you want to keep an eye on the courses I'll be doing, if you head over to my website, sajhussain.com, on there's a section on courses. If you put your details in there, then we'll ping you an email when those go live. They should be in the coming few weeks. The first one will come out, and they'll gradually, probably over the year, the rest of the courses will slowly become available. So hope that helps. Hope that answer your question. As I was saying earlier, I think to Raj, it's really about understanding the distinction between knowledge and application of knowledge. So really here, I'm sharing my knowledge with you. On the courses, what you're getting is knowledge, information, know-how, but then through mentoring, what you get is a support in the implementation of that knowledge so you can get the best possible results, minimizing your risks and mistakes and getting there faster. So let's get our last question up for this evening before we wrap up. Our last question is from Richard Varley on LinkedIn. What's the best way to finance a land development? We have half the amount. So on a land development, the key thing that you would look for here is being able to get the uplift in value, which is effectively the planning permission. Assuming, Richard, you've got the planning permission, let's say it's going to have £1 million GDV in terms of the end value of site, just using an example there. And you are going to have, say, £250,000 of profit on there, so 25% of the GDV. You've got £750,000 that you can pay for the land to purchase it, build it out, and cover your contingencies and finance costs as well. That all needs to be done within that 750,000. So you might have half of the money to buy the land. Let's say the land is going to be 400,000 and you've got 200 to buy the land. If it's got planning permission, you really should be able to raise development finance that will fund the whole purchase price, and or maybe 70 to 75 of the purchase price, and probably all of the development. So they'll drip feed the money that you need to be able to build it out if you've got a planning in place. But you'll need to put some of the money down to be able to purchase. So you don't, if you've got half of the money for the purchase, I suspect you're going to have enough to be able to put a deposit down, finance the rest of it, say 75% borrowing, cover your cost to get started, your legals, etc., and be able to set up development finance to draw down the money to build it out. So that's what you'll be able to do, but only if you've got the planning in place. If you haven't got planning in place, then it's much more speculative, it's much more risky, and much more difficult to finance because the exit is uncertain. And this is where a lot of the lenders will retract and not be so comfortable in lending on a project like that, which makes it harder for you to get the borrowing that you need. You might be able to go to private finance and private lenders, but also with private investors as well. The thing to bear in mind is they want certainty of exit as well. And a project like that, it's difficult to be able to offer that. So that's the ways that you would fund that. And if you need for me to connect you, this is for everybody really, if you want me to connect you with then the people that I work with, accountants, solicitors, finance people, head over to my website, and there's a page on there in terms of contacting me around that, and I can connect you with people or ping me a message on social media, whichever platform you're on. So that just leaves me to say thank you so much for spending your time with me this evening. I hope you've got some value from this. I've been thinking about maybe changing the format on this. We're coming close up to 60 episodes of running this on a weekly basis. So I'm thinking of changing it. I'd love to get your feedback, what maybe you'd like to see different in these sessions and how we run these, and even the time of the day, because running in an evening, quite late, maybe 8:30. And would it be more appealing if it was a different time of the day or a different day? I'd love to get your feedback on that before we make some decisions, what we'll be doing with this this particular live that we run. But until then, I look forward to seeing you again here next Monday at 8:30 p.m. Thank you so much.